So Jason, one of the things I really wanted to ask you about was your setup and your implementation, especially around team lead adoption, right? It's so critical for success to get your team leads bought in early. And I was really curious, what did you do? How did you approach it from, that top down approach to get them to buy into this new way of doing things?
So for us, it's so key that tools can bring value to the teams to get organic adoption effectively, right? I think often in enterprises, you end up buying licenses for things mandated from the top of
Right.
tools we have to use or things that should bring us value. But if the teams don't see that value, if the teams aren't getting improvement out of it, they're not going to use it.
Right.
Right. Or they'll use it so minimally as part of their process because they have to. Malicious compliance effectively, right? So kind of from the beginning, right, as we went through the initial evaluation of the tool, it's always been key for us to kind of bring the leads in and show them how this brings value to them,
Right.
and have them look at the tool and see how would they want to use it, right? As you look at the metrics in it, right, these are things that teams are already saying they should do. No team wants 3 days to pick up a PR, right? No team wants 18,000 code changes, right? But too often it's hard for teams to kind of track these things. It's hard for teams to be proactive in their management of them, right? And so it's been easy to get that team lead buy-in when they see the tool, and I ask them, how would you use this? What would you focus with your team on, right? So then you add in some of this stuff. One of the things we really liked about LinearB is the worker bee, right? Because the worker bee its whole focus is on helping the team, right? What we don't want is there can be the perception that a tool like this is for micromanagement or oversight.
Right.
And it's not our intention at all. We want this to be a tool for the teams. And so that's where for us, it's been really compelling getting the team leads in early, letting them look at the platform, letting them look at the tools, and them saying like, yes, we want to try this in our teams.
That's great. And I love that approach. I think coming at it from the team focused rather than the top down and getting their buy-in early, I think that's so critical because they get to see, oh yeah, this could help me out. Yeah, this does address a pain point I've been dealing with. Now, the flip side of that, and I think you and I talked about this earlier as well, every team is a little different, right? Every team has something that they're doing well, something that they're struggling with. So as you're talking about this LinearB implementation, and you're talking to some team that may be doing great on review time, for example, another team that may have a problem with pickup time. Like, how did you go about prioritizing those different issues? Did you kind of shotgun it all at once? Did you kind of say, let's focus on this for your one team? What was your approach?
Yeah. So, I think, like any large organization, we have a lot of teams, we have a lot of products.
Right.
And the challenges around different teams will be different. Right. Some of them will be around process on the engineering side, like PR pickups, large commits, quality, things like this.
Yeah.
And some of them will be more at the program level, right? Where everything's priority one, right? Or we can't get requirements on time, so we start sprint with half requirements or something like this, right?
Yeah.
And so LinearB, what we liked is it gives us visibility of that whole process, right? Kind of starting up that high level project, but the ability to drill down. And so what that let us do is for every team that we brought it to, they have an idea of where they think their problems are, and then they could use the tool to then find like, oh, these are the metrics that we believe we can make progress on effectively, right? And I think with all these tools, the key is you won't fix everything overnight, right? And so, kind of the big message we always had was, hey, pick the one thing or the two things that you believe your team can make progress on, that your team's going to believe in, that you're going to find value in effectively, right? And then let's take some action items to focus on those and see if we can get movement, right?
I love that. From a customer success perspective, that's something we look at as well is, what problem are you trying to solve so that we can come back and look at your usage 6 months, a year later and say, did we help you? Did it actually move the needle in the way you thought it would? And I love that you're thinking about that early on in a holistic way and making sure that, we're doing this not overarching strategy for the entire org, but like, what does this team need to be successful? What does this team need? And are we addressing those things, as needed? Now you're a couple months into your onboarding,
a few months now,
onto your onboarding. Now that you've have the benefit of hindsight, I'd love to know, are there things, thinking of other people who are coming on board with LinearB, that you wish you had like tackled a little differently in the onboarding, or maybe given a little bit more attention to early on?
Yeah.
Now that you know, like, oh yeah, this is,
It's a balance,
Right.
right? And so, one of the things, and what I like about LinearB is your engagement in the onboarding, right?
right,
Kind of the early meetings with leadership to identify, what are we looking at for our goals? Meeting with the tech leads to help them understand how it works for the team.
Mhm.
Meeting with the development teams to understand how to use it to get value for themselves effectively, right? I think there's a balance between getting everything completely set up
yeah,
and starting those teams to extract value from it effectively, right? And finding that balance is always tricky. I
right,
feel we've been a little slow on the developer level value, right?
Mhm.
So we've gotten great value even this early out at the leadership level and
Mhm.
at the tech lead level to identify, hey, where are our pain points? Where do we need to go back and push? But we haven't gotten down to that like developer enablement level yet.
Mhm.
We're just starting in that now
Yeah.
with the customer success team.
yeah,
And so it's cool to see some movement there, but I wish we got that going a little earlier in hindsight.
yeah. That makes sense. I think that's one of those things that everybody wishes they had just a little bit more time
Yeah.
to get into that. There's always like the chicken and egg scenario of like, we want to get going immediately. We want to get
Yeah.
that quick time to value. But there's that framework that you have to lay of like, all right, do we have all the repos set up that we need to? Do we have
Yeah.
everything labeled properly? Did we get everything configured the right way? And it's tricky to get that balance of like, let's do the legwork, but let's also make
Right.
sure that we get early adoption with the team, because that's the key. If we can get those
Well, and for us, that adoption is critical, right?
Yeah.
So, our aspiration is that this is a valuable tool
yeah,
that our teams really can use to drive ROI,
yeah,
right? If our teams can save 10 hours a year,
yeah,
it's super positive ROI on our side. But to do that, they have to adopt it,
Right.
right? And to scale globally with our teams, they have to want to adopt it.
right.
There's no top-down mandate that is
Mhm.
going to get all of our teams globally using this thing
Mhm.
if it doesn't bring them value, if they
Right.
don't want to do it, if they don't want to embed it in their processes
Yeah.
because they feel makes them more efficient at
Mhm.
what they do so they can deliver more value to our customers.
Now, as you kind of build this out more in your team, are you doing anything around process documentation for new hires, new team members that are coming in as you guys expand?
100%, right? We haven't started it yet because we're in the POC, right?
Yeah.
But as we talk about ways of working and standardization,
Uh-huh.
this would become part of our onboarding process, right? As we embed it into our ways of working for our teams, as it's used in our agile ceremonies, as they
Right.
identify things, right?
Yeah.
It would become part of our standard onboarding as any other tool set that we use, right? To enable
Yeah.
our teams.
That's awesome. Have you started using it in your retros yet?
So with the two teams that we have, they're
Yeah.
looking at it. I'm not as looped in
Yeah.
with them. I'm trying to let them drive it on their own
Yeah.
because we need each of those advocates, right? My dream
Yeah.
is that we go through this initial kind of Q4 with this implementation with these teams,
Yeah.
and they love it so much that they're coming to our community calls, our monthly kind of global calls, and presenting why other teams in Syngenta could use it.
Yeah.
That it's not a leadership thing, telling them they should use this tool because it's great.
Right.
It's their peers telling them, hey, look at how this was impactful for us.
Yeah.
You guys should take a look at it too, right?
I love that. I think it resonates so much more when it's coming from another developer.
100%, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not going to BS you,
Yeah.
right? From a leadership perspective, we're not trying to BS you, but we may be wrong,
Right.
right?
That's fair.
If we have multiple development teams who have taken this POC, who've implemented this tool, who have gotten the value out of the tool where they say, hey, this has helped our team a lot on the things that we care about,
Right.
not the things that leadership cares about or management cares about, the things that we care about,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's a compelling story, I feel.
That's great. That's great. Are you using it, or do you have plans to use it managing up, like going up to your board?
100%. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things we really like about it is that project overview and the dashboard overview, right?
Yeah.
So, as we talk about globally distributed teams, to be able to give site leadership in each of those regions better overviews of health of their projects,
Right.
of health of their burn downs, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are things that, I mean, at the end of the day, in theory, things are available in GitHub. In theory, things are available in Jira.
In theory, yeah.
But, kind of bringing this data into one place, right? Correlating it together, making it easy to view,
Mm-hmm.
right? In a consolidated way so that, we can take our lead in India, for example, who might have 10 or 11 projects under him,
Yeah.
and give him a really easy way to look at these things to drive discussions with teams as necessary, or to say, hey, all this stuff looks good, right?
Yeah.
So
That's great. And you have pretty distributed teams, right? You guys are all over the place.
We do, yeah. So we have offices in the U.S. We have an office in Brazil, in India, and in Madrid as well, right? So being able to, and then those teams also work with each other on projects, right? So being able to have those different consolidations and things is really super valuable for us.
That's great. Yeah, I think having that cross collaboration and being able to kind of see it all, like you said before, in a centralized place, it makes a huge difference. So I always love to know, I love our customers. I love when we win a deal. I love to know with you what it was that kind of set LinearB apart from the other competitors you were evaluating.
So we evaluated a number of different tools, right? And at the end of the day, they all offer similar metrics, right? There were tools that offered more metrics or different things or were more configurable. But what we really liked about LinearB was the simplicity, right?
Right.
I don't want to have to go in and do hours of setup for every team.
Yeah.
I want teams to be able to come in. I want to be able to onboard a team for them to come in and to be able to immediately use the product and drive value, right? And for us, the user interface of LinearB, the worker bee integration, and the simplicity of everything was a huge driver, right?
It makes a lot of sense.
We can bring them on. They can go in. They can quickly identify what they need. It's easy for them to embed into their tools or retros or things like that.
Yeah.
And we felt with the dashboarding and things, it has the right level of customization. So as a team picks, from all the different things they can look at, the metrics that they want to focus on, they can easily consolidate those to their own view that they could use, right? So for us, it struck a really great balance of that first entry ease of use, the right level of customization to support our teams.
And that's a tricky balance, right?
Yeah,
I mean, because a lot of times you have that like ease of use, turnkey, you can get set up right away, but there's not the configuration that you need, right? Or you go too far in the other direction and you can configure literally anything. But
then you have to configure everything.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I love to hear that. And so, it sounds like you were able to get a pretty quick time to value for a lot of your people who are adopting.
100%. And even I can go in and set stuff up really basic and not everything's perfect, but we can get some good stuff out of it. Right.
That's great. So, that's great. And now as you've had chances to go in and configure, what are some of the early changes you guys have been tweaking along the way?
Yes. I mean, with a globally distributed team, all of our standards are slightly different, right? So being able to configure on a per project level, right? Your MTR, for example, right? Being able to have our teams look at how we do releases, how we tag them, to be able to detect those things at the right level for each project effectively, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, release cadence in a mobile app will never match a web app, right? So maybe they want to look at the nightly builds that they're pushing out to the testing streams on an automated basis, but not those production releases, right? So to be able to configure that to give the teams the right level of visibility for stuff they care about, and then the dashboarding, right? To be able to have our team leads and our engineering leaders be able to go in and say, these are the things I care about, show them to me, has been great value for us.
That's great. And it sounds like you've been able to use that and they're using it in their own reporting and kind of building it into their day-to-day workflow, right?
We're working on it. That's the idea. We've started on it, and we hope to expand it. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I'm really glad to get a chance to chat with you today, find out what's working, how you're liking it, and looking forward to having this conversation again a year from now and see what you've been able to do.
Awesome.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
All right. Thanks.